Hello and welcome to another episode of Outzo. Today, my good friend Alon Lebenthal from London is going to talk to us about workload automation and how that's changing our lives, both at work and at home. Welcome to the zoo, Alon.
Hi, Alf. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good
Tell
to
us a
be.
little bit. You're not really a BMC from the get-go. We didn't have, you were a customer once, weren't you?
Well, yeah, it was a long time ago. I'm already 16 years in BMC, but before that, I was a customer. Indeed, I was a customer, and I was dealing with workload automation or job scheduling, as we used to call it then.
Yes. Who were you working for?
I was actually working for the Israeli Air Force for
Okay.
many years.
You were an IT guy at the Israeli Air Force.
I was a system mainframe, believe it or not.
Because there's a lot of interesting things happening now in that part. The Palestinians hacking into the Israeli defense systems and it causing all this trouble. It's just funny to follow along because it's such a big. You never thought that Pentagon or the defense forces or something like that would ever be hacked or in any way compromised. And the technology has changed dramatically over the last few years.
Yeah, it's difficult to keep safe these days.
It is. So one aspect of technologies has become more prominent, at least as our dependence on technology has changed a lot, is workload automation.
True.
And we today talk about the industrial version of workload automation, something that can fit today's needs. So tell me a little bit about what would a good workload automation entail? What does it need to be successful in a modern IT world?
Yeah, well, first, when we talk today about job scheduling or we talk about workload automation, something to keep in mind is that in most of the organizations, our customers, companies, the IT environment is complex, is very heterogeneous.
Mm.
Companies usually will have a data center which is composed of um, mainframe and distributed system machines, ERP systems, using file transfers, Java applications. Some of the organizations are already taking advantage of advanced technologies like Hadoop for big data. So the first thing I would say about workload automation these days is that in order to satisfy those needs, a good workload automation solution needs to provide full enterprise capabilities, need to be able to provide a good span of control. So it will be able to actually manage the workflows, manage the workload across all those different environments. And more than that, naturally, what organizations want is a single point of control, having one single location where they can actually manage their processes, which usually are a combination of tasks or processes running on an SAP environment, file transfers, Windows applications, or any other combination, depending, of course, on what the customers are running.
And there's a difference between time scheduling and event scheduling. How does that work?
Yeah, well, time scheduling is usually, we can take a very basic example of scheduling a specific process to run on a weekly basis, let's say every Wednesday at 10 o'clock at night. So when we talk about time scheduling, we talk about scheduling a process to run at a certain time. It may be based on calendars, taking holidays into consideration. Naturally, this is something that the workload automation solution should support. Event-based scheduling is more scheduling activities or scheduling a process to take place when something happens in your environment. It can be a recovery from a failure, it can be an arrival of a file, especially when we talk about initiating processes as a result of an external activity, or so on.
I got you. I get you. So, who uses job scheduling? Is it anything from mom and pop shops to enterprise? It sounds like it's something that a large enterprise would use predominantly.
Yeah, well, sometimes the perception is that only very large organizations use workload automation or scheduling. But the reality is that every IT department that is running critical processes, critical applications, they have a need to automate those processes. They need to assure that they are running successfully. And of course, they need to assure that finally the company's SLAs are met. So when we talk about different types of users or different types of organizations using workload automation, we definitely see different types. So we see large organizations, we see medium organizations, and sometimes even small ones.
I read about the Hong Kong air cargo company who are using, I believe it's Control-M, and they're dealing with something like 1 million transactions a day. Is that the norm, or is that fairly large?
Yeah, well, yeah, you are right. Actually today we published a recent success story with the Hong Kong air cargo terminal. But yes, when we look at a typical customer running a workload automation solution or automating the workloads, it varies. Some organizations, especially large organizations like banks or insurance companies, may run up to millions of processes per day, and then there is a need to automate those processes. Naturally, it's a complicated task, but it's a must in order to assure that everything is running successfully. But yeah, certain organizations will have a much similar environment. Sometimes even with 50 or 100 processes a day, still there is a need to automate it. Still there is a need of assuring that those processes run successfully.
Is that because they're very complex or very critical, or how come, if it's so few of them, why wouldn't it be easy to do them manually?
Well, because doing things manually usually results in delays, it results in errors. The other aspect that is very important in nowadays workload automation environments is to manage to the business priorities. So if your environment, you are running various processes and something goes wrong, you need to be able to identify what's the meaning of the problem, how will it impact the business. And I can actually give you an example. Of a customer I met several times. It's a large bank in Latin America, and they're running hundreds of thousands of processes per day. And when I met them a couple of years ago, one of the challenges that they were facing was to actually manage and monitor the large volume of processes and assuring that everything goes well, because if something goes wrong, and usually, again, if you have 500,000 processes running per day, many of those running at the same time, of course, in parallel, it's more than possible that processes will fail at the same time, and then there is an issue of understanding the meaning of every process, prioritizing it. So manage to the business priorities is very important. And by the way, this specific customer managed to resolve this issue by implementing one of our solutions that allowed them to define the critical processes, and they managed to convert, I think the number was around 200,000 jobs into 20 or 30 processes, critical processes that make it much easier to manage and monitor.
Wow, that's interesting. So as things change, so does our solutions. What do you think is going to happen to job scheduling over the next 2, 3, 5 to 10 years, or even tomorrow?
Well, one of the things that is already happening is the fact that today most of the companies, probably all of them, are going through changes. The changes are a result of implementing a new application. It can be enrollment of an SAP system. It can be implementing a big data project, a Hadoop. It can be a result of a merger for acquisition. Anyway, those changes are happening in almost all of the organizations, and those changes are driving the need to consolidate solutions, are driving the need to automate better in order to assure that the organizations can actually cope with the change that is happening in their data center. Another thing that is happening, or is quite interesting, is the fact that more and more people need today access to the workload automation environment. It's a combination of operations, application developers, business owners who want to get access to the environment. So it creates a need of better self-service or easy-to-use solutions that will allow even the people who are not expert on workload automation to get what they need from the environment. So solutions that will allow business owners to monitor and track the status of their business without having the need to call to the operations. Application developers, making it easier for them to define new processes into the workload automation environment, and by doing that, allowing them to release applications faster to production.
What about Hadoop, this big open source platform for storing and processing big data? Is that going to sweep in and make everybody big data experts?
I'm not sure if everybody will become big data experts, but the reality is that most of the big organizations today are either implementing or looking into implement a big data project, most of them based on Hadoop. And once they implement those projects, they see that there is a strong need to automate processes as well. So there are various open source solutions nowadays in the market with very limited capabilities, basic scheduling capabilities. So there is definitely a strong need here for workload automation solution, not to mention the fact that big data is not an island. So every customer is implementing big data, is also running some other applications, so there is a need to integrate all of it, and this is where workload automation workload automation solutions will become crucial. And by the way, we had already a few success with selling our solutions for big data.
Great. Well, talking about islands, you are calling in on an Friday evening from London. In this horrible weather I heard about, you got something fun cooking on the stove tonight?
Well, first, horrible weather, it goes without saying, it's England. I've been here for 6 years now, and it has been raining almost every day. Or so it seems. Cooking for dinner, well, yeah, cooking is my passion, but actually tonight, it's 8 o'clock right now. I had no time to cook, so tonight it's a restaurant.
Oh, that sounds good. By the way, I was in London this summer, and it was ferociously hot and beautiful weather, strangely so.
Yeah, well, probably I wasn't here. I tend to miss those sunny days.
Thank you, Alon. I really appreciate you visit me in the zoo. I hope we can do this again soon.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
For the rest of you out there, take care. Be safe. Bye-bye.